Hey, here's a
Hi.
shock. We're doing a mission editor tutorial because I didn't know how to use this tool. I know a lot of you guys won't. Bchamp does, and I want to learn. So, Bchamp, I'm all yours. Teach me.
Cool. So we'll go over this. Hopefully we'll cover all the bases. So first we have when you go to File New, this little window pops up, and you can select your terrain template.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
There are also a few more. You
Generally,
can use your
yeah,
arrow
there's
keys. You get to tropical.
yes. So you need to use your arrow keys to scroll down to get the tropical ones. But in general, if you're making your first map, I'd recommend a smaller, medium-sized map. Really large-sized maps are just not good. They're generally too big for most gameplay. So I don't even know if there really are very many maps on large
I think there's a few, but
templates.
I think a lot of them we've actually shrunk down to medium.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely try a medium or small template to start. So you can click OK. You don't need to worry about the mod there.
Okay.
It doesn't really do anything.
All right.
So
There's
now
a
that you
medium
have this up,
template.
yeah, perfect. So just kind of get acquainted with the screen here. One thing that you'll notice is at the bottom middle, the bottom center, where it says height 20 meters.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
you can see wherever you're hovering your mouse, it will tell you the characteristics of what's there. So if you have water, if you have land, it'll tell you the heights, which is very, very nice. And you're going to use that a lot for your 3D painting tool.
Okay.
Uh, So the first thing that I always do whenever I open up a new map is go to Overlay,
Yeah.
and then I'll turn on the 10-meter grid. And
All right.
so if you're ever making maps in IC, it's really important to see how big 10 meters is or just the distances. So I would scroll in here and we can place a lab. So the top left, you have that. This is kind of like all your different tools. So the first tool that you'll be selected on, which is
The little
the left
person.
innermost,
The
yeah,
tree.
this
Mm-hmm.
little tree thing. Yeah, and you can see now on the right hand side, this is where you can place your objects. And so you can go to structures and then lab. And you can select lab. And then to actually place the lab, you'll want to right click on the map. And so I would zoom in so you can actually see it
Oh,
when
I
you click.
see. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you have to zoom in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other thing about while we're here placing buildings is there's something called player assignment. So you see in the right hand bar, it says world. You'd want to set that to a particular player. So player one, player two, etc. For the labs. But
Okay.
really only labs and henchmen should be designated to a specific player. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want things like coal or geysers or trees dedicated to a player because they'll have constant vision of that.
Mm-hmm.
With coal in particular, if a particular player has coal dedicated to them, I believe it makes it so that coal's like unlimited. Um, so you don't want to do that. You want to make sure it's dedicated to world.
There's good relic things there. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little confusing. But anyways, we can zoom in, we can see these 10-meter squares. You can see about how big a lab is.
So the lab is
And
like 1.3, 1.4 to 40
yeah,
meters ish.
yep, exactly. And then 10 meters in the other direction.
Yeah.
Um, so whenever you are uh, thinking about how big creatures are and how much space you want for choke points, things like that, you want to keep these tiles up. And I think that's really important. You can either keep the 10 meters or the 32 meters up.
Oh,
And
okay. So I
these
can place an
tiles,
elephant as well.
yep,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Look at that, looks nice.
Okay. This is
And you can place
shift and
other
left mouse, by
buildings.
the way, to rotate.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so it's just so
excellent.
I can get a rough kind of scale of things by doing that.
Yeah, and so now if you zoom out all the way, you'll notice exactly how big your map is, and it
Okay, yeah,
can
yeah.
be,
The
yeah,
map's
and so
pretty big then.
yeah, it's a pretty decent size, and so you could easily put a 6-player map on this. Like Deep Freeze is on a medium template. Um, so we
Interesting, because
can
deep freeze is
get rid
like
of
kind of.
those. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, oh, I can't see it because it's off my map. Okay, get rid of
Yeah, you have
those.
to
Yeah.
zoom in to see. And so going back to maneuvering objects, you were kind of talking about it, Will.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to place the lab down,
Sure.
or anything, and
Doesn't matter.
then so you place it again with right click, right?
Hmm.
And then when you actually want to turn it, or let's say moving it,
Well,
you
you
can just
can
move
move
it with
just with the left mouse. They're
yep,
actually all the bottom left, aren't they? So move is left mouse button.
yep,
Place again is right mouse button, which is what I just did. Shift and left mouse. So when you're clicking it, hold shift and drag your mouse. Oh no, clicking it, hold shift, and then click again, and click and hold this time. You can rotate the lab a full 360, I think, but it's harder than it looks actually to a 360. Hmm.
it's kind of acting weird and wobbling for you for some reason.
Yeah, you can do it in
Yeah, I usually do
stages.
90 at a time. Yeah, I just do like that.
Yeah, okay. Shift and right mouse button is up or
So if
down.
you want to adjust the height with respect to the terrain,
Uh, that's not doing anything for me. Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah. So it can actually fly or go through land if you don't want it exactly on the ground.
interesting.
Um,
When
otherwise,
is that
things will
ever
be.
useful?
It actually is kind of useful for certain things that when you have terrain that is not flat and you're placing something down,
Hmm.
then you could want to do, especially for things like trees or caves or stuff like that. Not as useful for labs.
Oh, for underwater caves and stuff then.
Yeah. Or if you want part of the rock to just be cut off just for aesthetics reasons, or
Hmm.
to melt into the cliffside, then you can do something like that.
You could lower it down so you only see half the rock or something.
Exactly.
So if you
It's really useful for things like waterfalls where the height is extremely important.
grab a waterfall, this is generic.
Yeah, and so you can see how you'd want to adjust that height according to the height of your cliff and your water, up
Yeah,
and
okay,
down.
okay.
And then last one is to clone something.
Which is
Is
control and left mouse, right?
yep, and then you should
Oh,
just be able to drag it around. Yep,
yeah, okay, so let's
nice,
have an army of waterfalls here.
exactly. So we can delete these and go to our next tab. So, because within the objects tab, I guess you'll be able to place all your trees and objects. You can explore through it and see what it is. But this is just a basic overview of how to use all the tools.
Hmm.
This is the most important thing that you'll be using, which is the 3D painting tool.
Hmm.
So if you go over to the right and draw your attention there, you can see that we're on land. We're setting a value. So if you're setting a value, let's say our current value of the land is all 20. If you can see at the bottom, if we're hovering our mouse, the height is 20 for everything.
Hmm.
But let's say we're going to do set value and we can change the height to 25 or something like that. Um, yep, we can do it like that. Then you can see how that changes. You can see it's raised up a little bit there. And so this is a little bit difficult to see exactly what you're looking at. And so if you actually toggle, we can toggle an overlay. Now it's really useful. So
Hmm.
I go to overlay and then I do update amphibian impasse map. So this is where units can or cannot go. And so
Oh,
their
okay.
units, amphibians, I guess, are unable to travel through the red.
Yeah.
And so whenever I'm drawing cliffs, I'm always looking at this map because in the end, or this overlay, because in the end, when it comes to mapping, what you want is a particular flow of units. Where can units go? Where can they not go? And so looking at this is going to be really important. And you can look at all those different impasse maps within the overlay tab. But now, if you do make additional changes, let's add some more cliffs here. Okay, they don't update the map impasse map right away. Unfortunately, you do have to go to overlay again at the top and then update it
Okay.
there. So you're gonna have to do that every time. But now let's say that we do want henchmen to be able to walk, or any amphibious units to be able to walk along this map. How are we gonna do that? And so you can actually go to the smoothing tool. So if you see where it says set value,
Yep.
uh, you can actually do smoothing. So smoothing does exactly what you think it does. And you can just click and it'll start to smooth out this area. And you're gonna have to do repeated clicks. And now try updating the map here. Look at that. So you can see how it kind of created a little ramp for units to be able to go up onto the map. One thing to notice about smoothing is the strength matters a lot. And basically 100 is the only one that's going to get you places. is you're gonna have to do 100 strength. When you start doing like 40 strength and stuff like that, it's really just to make your edges a little bit less sharp, but you're not really gonna be able to get good ramps out of that.
I was gonna
So if
say
you
I'm
want
doing
to
it
do
with
ramps,
39 now, and it's doing nothing.
yeah, even up to like 90 sometimes, depending on how steep your cliffs are, it can be kind of hard. These are only 5 meters difference between the low and the high parts of the cliff, but it you get diminishing returns rather quickly, except with 100. I find is just really nice. So most of the time, I'll keep it on 100 and only do smoothing on, let's say, 25 if I just want to take away some harsh edges at the end. And that's something that you should do. At the very end, once you're done with all your cliffing, is you should use the smoothing tool. But um, let's go back to the 3D painting a little bit. And if you could go to mode
Yeah.
and change to water now.
Yep.
Okay, and now make water, you can also make it 25, for example. You're already there. And start painting it anywhere on the map. Okay, so now if you look at that, what's actually there, if you maybe update your land impasse map.
There it is. We'll just make it a bit bigger,
Oh,
actually. Easier
yeah,
to
make it really
see.
big. So you can see that what's interesting about the Impossible Creatures map editor is that water and land are two separate pieces. This water is just like there's no game physics that say the water has to be flat, right? So we actually have a little mountain of water that's placed right here that swimming units could just swim into.
Mhm.
So being able to understand that water, if you are that you need to edit both water and land, I guess is the point of this.
Okay.
Whenever you need to keep both heights in mind. You can't just assume that the water is going to do what you want it to do. And this is really important if you want to create an elevated pool. So now if you were to create land, for example, around that water that you made, so then we can
So
create like a cliff pond.
that was at height 49. So we go to land and make that like 52.
Yeah,
And
yeah, something
then
like that. And we're setting
draw
value.
around
Good.
it. Didn't go particularly well. Let's
Yeah, and
just
so here's actually something funny that you're
oh,
noticing. If
oh,
we can actually go to go
let's
and
update
hover
that.
over the water. Go and hover
Oh
your mouse
gosh.
over the water.
Yeah.
You'll notice the height of the water is only 31.5 when you did get over the water. And see, and also none of the height of what you just placed is actually a 52. Did you notice that? There, 31.5 water
Yeah.
height.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you notice the land height is 44. It's not actually 52 where you're setting value. And the reason for this is because your strength was not 100. If your strength were at 100, then it
Oh.
would have set that value immediately for
And it
both the
would have
water and
looked
the land.
normal. Okay, so we did water
Yeah.
and like this. Let's go a little bit smaller this time. Go 35 for water. So I put my
Mm-hmm.
column of water here. You can
Yep.
see.
And then now hover your mouse over it. See if it's actually 35.
Yeah,
Yep,
35.
exactly. That's
So we
exactly what you
land.
want.
Make the brush size a little bit smaller because that was an issue, I think. Let me go around it.
Exactly. All
Okay.
right.
So, oh, that's not
Nice.
really gone
And
very well.
yeah, and so
Then these gaps. So now we have water at 35. So I've noticed that the
and so
water doesn't fill up the area. Is it easier to do land first and then put the water on afterwards?
it is. It is. I was just about to say that. So now you can, because you can, if your water is going to be a lower value than your land, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you say your land's at 35, you want to put your water at 34 or something like that, then you know that you can be generous and basically overpaint with the water
Mm-hmm.
and fill in that land because the land is going to overlap it and hide it. So no one's going to see if your three-dimensional water is actually a little bit off.
Okay. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now what I would do if you make a cliff like this, what I would do is you can go to mode land and go to smoothing again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, land smoothing. Yeah.
And then take your strength down to like 30, 25, 30.
32.
Yeah, like
Okay.
that. Yeah, and then make your brush size really big. And
24.
then just go over that whole thing. Yeah, just there, like that. Nice. And so you can do something like that and it'll smooth out your edges to make it look a little bit more natural and a little bit less sharp. And so depending on
Awesome.
exactly the look you're going for, you can go for different strengths.
Okay.
If you want a more jaggedy landscape, then maybe you would uh, cha- do your whole map at only 12 or something like that. But again, you'll do all of your 3D painting first and then do your smoothing at the very end just to soften the edges a little bit
Okay.
because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do get
Yeah.
these jagged spikes when you're doing 3D
So
painting.
here is jagged, for example. So if I change the strength up to like 30, it would smooth it out.
Yeah, a little. That nice. And
Not perfect,
but
but
a lot of these jagged cliffs are usually hidden by the cliff decals, and so we can go there next.
okay.
So if you go to the next tool on the top bar
This
there,
one.
yeah, and we can find all our cliff decals. So if you go, you can find Sav Cliff, very common cliff decal.
Where's
Um,
Cliff 1 and 2 and 3?
they should be at the bottom, I believe. Keep
Oh
going.
no, these are SW.
There,
Oh,
Sav Cliff. Yeah,
okay. Let's do
those
South
are the
Cliff
main
03.
ones. Yeah, so you can place that by right-clicking, just like you did,
Yep.
and then now you can shift and drag it around,
So that's a bit big
and then
actually. Can I?
you can just make it smaller by scaling it, right? So shift plus right mouse button. There we go. And then now start turning it. So there's a top and bottom to these cliff decals. If you place the cliff decal flat on the ground, we can actually see where the top and the bottom is.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so looking at that, um, you can see that it needs to be placed up and down like this. I generally place what looks to be the bottom to you right now. I generally flip it, so that's the top.
So is this the bottom here?
I
Did
put
I
that as the
highlight it?
top. That's the
Oh,
top
okay.
actually.
All
Yeah.
right.
So I
So
would spin it around.
yeah,
Yeah. And then now you can move
just
it and
delete this
drag it.
one.
Yeah. And now drag it up to your piece like that. And then
Oh.
make it smaller, rotate it in place. Um, and then here's a good time where I would put on your land impasse map or your amphibian impasse map or overlay rather.
Yeah.
And
But
you can
land or
see
amphibian?
exactly. It doesn't matter in this
Okay.
case,
Oh, because you want
but
the thing to cover.
exactly, right?
Right.
Wherever there's
Okay.
impasse, wherever there's red, you want the cliff to denote that. That way the player knows where there's red, or where they can't move their units, right? Because these cliffs help the player identify where their units can't go. So making sure to line these up properly is going to be really important. The next thing, if you actually turn off the impasse map now, toggle overlay,
Mhm.
is what we want to try to avoid doing is what Will did, which is repeating the same decal over and over next to each other, just because it can not in this particular instance, but or at least not as badly, but it
This
can
one's
start
really
to look
bad.
really patterned, where
So this
everything
looks.
starts to look the same on a cliff
Mhm.
over and over again. And so alternating between the three decals really helps Savcliff 1, 2, and 3, really helps break up the pattern to make it so even at a glance it doesn't look, it looks more natural. It doesn't look like there's a pattern to it.
If we use this one instead, so I'll shrink it down, move it up here. Oh, can I make it on top?
Yeah, actually, you can't add it to the top. You'd have
Okay,
to
so
delete the
drag
other
that one
one.
away,
Yeah.
and then nestle that one in here.
Yep,
Or
exactly. That'd be a
rotation
perfect way to
perhaps,
do it.
like there, right?
Yep. Nice.
Okay. Alright, nice. We can decal now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's plenty of decals. Feel free to look through there. And again, all the controls for how to move them about is going to be on the bottom left of the screen, that little toolbar there.
Excuse me.
So that's really some of the main basics. I would say the other things that you need to look at are going to be when you go to scenario.
Mm-hmm.
This is just go to properties there. And so that's just where you set your map name.
Oh,
Really
okay.
easy.
So I could call this test.
Yep, exactly. And so that's where how the name that it would show up in the um, Impossible Creatures game. It'll
Okay.
show up. It'll say test is the name of your
Oh,
map.
okay. So I can do single player missions this way as well.
Exactly. So
All right.
you can determine what you want exactly, and then the other thing that you can do is go um, change your lighting. And so there's the stoplight. Do you see the stoplight on the top?
Yep.
Immediately to the right of it. If you go to the
Oh.
right of it,
Mhm.
yeah, here you can actually change the time of day.
Let me turn that
And
stoplight. How do I
so
turn the stoplight off? Oh, okay. There we go.
yeah, and change
So,
that time of day. Yeah, and so you can see how your shadows will move around. This helps me a lot when it comes to cliffing because sometimes the shadows get so dark that it's hard to exactly see all the features on my map. And so I can better toggle the shadows to see the cliffs and the properties, the height properties of my map, by adding more shadow to distinguish the cliffs more or less shadow.
oh,
So
and you can
feel free.
change the sky as well. I didn't know you could do this.
Yeah, there's lots of different options for the sky, or even just the color of the lighting, what color the shadows are themselves, if they're gonna be a dark color or a lighter color.
Oh, and you can fog.
I'm not exactly sure how that fog works.
You know what? Normalize. So let's turn that off again.
Yeah.
Oh no, must have been this way. Nope. Oh gosh. Let's try that.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah. What's this detail texture repeat?
Um, this is gonna be just some of the textures that are on the map, how they just kind of how it looks. If you want to be a bit more granular,
Oh,
then
oh, that's
yeah, like
horrible.
it's yeah, exactly. So I usually don't mess with that. I just keep it at 3.
It will be funky and use 4.
Yeah.
No, we won't. We'll try 2. That would be nicer. Yeah, we'll go 2. Okay.
Yeah. So
And
it's
the
really
ocean blend width. Presumably this is going to affect here.
yes.
I didn't notice any change.
I don't notice either, but it should.
Well, it's
You might be
okay.
because your map goes to the very edge
Okay.
as
Maybe it's something
well.
you've got to do in the water itself when you.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Apply that and close it. So now
Yeah.
I can do terrain, I can decal, and I can
Yeah.
change time of day and name my map.
Yeah. I think the biggest parts we can do another tutorial about the best way to do your terrain and your 3D painting, because that's going to be a lot in just terms of techniques and how to make everything look good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but use all the tools you have. So there's add, there's subtract, there's set value, there's smoothing. I use all of those when doing my maps. Add and subtract create a little bit more of an organic type shapes. Set value is really nice when I want large flat surfaces where I know creatures will go on. And of course, smoothing, you saw how we can create ramps and stuff with smoothing. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Alright, awesome. Well, that is probably enough to get everyone started. So we'll call it here, and then we'll perhaps rendezvous in a few days when I've had a bit more time to practice myself, and we can move on to uh, some of the other tools. Like I'm really anxious to know what, not the decals, but texture stamping and detail textures and all these other things are, because I don't know what any of these are. So this will be really
Yeah.
interesting to learn, I think. All right, well, thanks again for your help, Bchamp.
Yeah, no problem.
Make a little series out of this, I guess, and document me learning to map.
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. Thanks for watching.